They told him to make memories, 5 specialists in tailored suits standing at the foot of a tiny hospital bed, saying it like the weather. 2 months, maybe less. If it were your child, would you nod and thank them? Or would something inside you crack so loud you could feel it in your teeth? The room didn't look like tragedy. At first it looked like money, like control, private wing lighting, turned soft and forgiving machines purring, as if money could tune sorrow. And at the end of the bed stood Preston Vale, the man whose name lives on a skyline, fingers pressed white around discharge papers he never imagined he'd sign. The doctors explained airway collapse, catastrophic bleeding. The absence of any proven therapy, they used words like comfort, dignity, end of life, and then they left him with pamphlets that tell you how to keep breathing while your heart forgets. He tucked those papers under his arm, placed a hand on his son's hair, and whispered, "I'm here, buddy. I'm here," like proximity could win a fight with time. You know what I mean? They brought 7-year-old Eli home that night, oxygen tank rolling over marble footsteps, ringing in a house that had never felt so large or so empty. Wealth has a sound when it's winning. It's a hum, a forward lean, but when it loses to something it cannot buy, it goes quiet. It sits down on the floor with you and shrugs. Preston tucked the blankets, adjusted the tubing, with hands that usually signed contracts, turned the cartoon on mute to soften the air, and waited for the night to blink. He had an army of staff, a calendar, that once told the world where to stand, and suddenly all of that collapsed into 2 words he hadn't said out loud in years. Please help. Help didn't arrive in a lab coat. It stepped in quietly, with a rag in one hand, and eyes that knew the shape grief takes when it doesn't get to leave. Her name was Maya on the roster, as cleaning staff shoes that squeaked, a little hair tied back, because life had taught her to keep it out of the way when work gets messy. Eli was breathing too fast, voice stuck behind a window only he could see, and every professional who tried to coax a word lost a little more ground. Maya didn't coax, didn't clap, didn't demand. She lowered herself to the floor, across the room, matched his rhythm, held the rag like a flag of truce, and waited. That's it. She waited. Presence is a language, too. Eli nudged a red plastic block with his foot. Eyes flicking up, and she answered with a blue block. Not a word, not a face full of encouragement, just a mirror, just a rhythm, and something loosened in the house like a knot finally slipping through. From the hallway, Preston watched, half pride, half panic, and for a breath he didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like a father who'd been handed a key after rattling the same locked door for 2 years. The next morning he called her into his office, the one with glass that makes the city look like his, and a desk that could anchor a ship, and said, "You handled him like you've done it 100 times." She kept her voice steady. "Not with him, sir, with my brother. He was autistic. He passed away." That one sentence pulled a wire through the room and tightened it. He could have let hierarchy win, sent her back to polishing surfaces, while the experts kept their clipboards, or he could try the one thing money is terrible at. Trust. He chose trust. A room in the staff wing, double pay weekends off, just be near Eli, be consistent, be the steady hand money can't buy. The house changed in small ways first, like the hush before a storm breaks the air open. At breakfast, Eli tapped his spoon twice, tiny and precise, waited until Maya looked up, slid his plate closer for more fruit, and she smiled. Placed strawberries in front of him, let his eyes tell her the rest. In the garden, he arranged pebbles into careful shapes along the stones, and she mirrored his movements, naming only what he invited, never climbing into his silence with a ladder made of her need. Trust grew like a vine in sunlight, not fast, but relentless. If you've ever loved a child through fear, you can see the picture I'm painting. Not everyone clapped. They never do. Mary Ann, the head nurse, watched with tight lips, pearl studs like punctuation marks on a sentence she'd already decided to write. She has no license, no formal training, she whispered, as if credentials are the only hands a child is allowed to hold. And family can hurt you, from the side you thought was safe, too. Preston's mother, Eleanor, arrived unannounced, cane clicking authority into the floor. And when she saw Maya crouched beside Eli, book open, body soft and patient, her mouth thinned into a line. That girl does not belong here. Then Eli tugged Maya's sleeve, whispered again, barely audible but undeniable, and for a heartbeat, even Eleanor's cane forgot to click. That night, Preston asked Maya, "What did you do?" She shook her head. "I didn't do anything magical. I waited. Sometimes kids like Eli need space more than words. And when they finally use their voice, it's because they know it's safe." He sat with that answer, let it burn through his favorite lies about control, let humility pull up a chair inside a chest, built for certainty. Meanwhile, the outside world caught a scent, the board at Vale Industries, smiling with their teeth, asking about focus, about rumors, about unconventional care. Isn't it wild how they will ride your excellence like a thoroughbred, then try to muzzle the one thing that makes you human? A director said the word "Maid" like it might stain his tongue, and Preston just looked at the window at a city he could buy and sell and told the truth. You call it unconventional, I call it working. At home, Maya kept showing up in all the ways that matter, annotating children's books with sticky notes, rhythms here, visual anchors there, tracking. Which sounds pulled Eli back from the edge, building a map out of his favorite colors, offering bridges instead of instructions. People think love is loud, but the bravest kind I've seen wears soft shoes and keeps receipts. Pattern interrupt. Here's the twist. One evening, Eli's pupils looked pinpricked, his breathing loose and heavy, hot panic. Not exactly asleep, more like the body had been told to quiet down. Maya didn't dramatize, she checked the logs because care is love plus notes, and something didn't add up. Doses signed out that didn't match what had been delivered, sedatives charted on days when Eli had been unusually docile, initials that looked right, until you saw the tiny slant on the letter that shouldn't lean that way. She waited until the house slept, then spread those sheets across Preston's desk, like a war map, walked him through it line by careful line. His pen snapped in his hand, a drop of blue ink on a signature that should have been black. He didn't rage, he didn't throw, he did the dangerous thing. He called the hospital's compliance officer, demanded an audit, brought in an independent pediatric specialist who looked at the medication levels and said the words that turned his stomach. Oversedation. Not lethal, but enough to keep a child quiet enough to make a boy look like a diagnosis instead of a person trying to get out. Do you think that's fair, that a system can smooth its own edges by smoothing a child's voice? That convenience wears a badge and calls itself care? Morning hit the estate like a gavel. Preston stood in the great hall and told the truth to staff, to family, to himself. I trusted the machine more than I trusted my eyes. That ends now. Eleanor stepped forward, cane-planted voice sharp and clear. We built this house on appearances. It's time we rebuild it on presence. The audit thundered through the hospital protocols, rewritten apologies issued with the crisp efficiency of public relations calls from people who suddenly remembered his number. Through all of it, Maya kept doing the simplest, hardest work. She kept showing up for Eli. That's what changed him. Showing up. Not that the pushback stopped. An anonymous letter appeared in Preston's study box, neat handwriting, acid wrapped in concern. Trusting the maid will ruin your reputation. He read it once, fed it to the fire, no speech, no flourish, just a decision, and sometimes that's all the world needs to see from you to believe the rest. A clean line. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. On a morning crisp enough to make the lawn glitter, Maya hummed while lacing Eli's shoes, the kind of tune that doesn't demand applause, just offers a beat to lean against. They walked into the garden, Eli touching bark, pausing at a yellow flower, whispering bird like it was a secret he could trust the air with. Preston joined them, expensive shoes sinking into wet grass. Morning champ, he said. And Eli did something so simple, it felt like a miracle with its sleeves rolled up. He reached up and placed his hand in his father's. If you've ever had a child choose you after months of distance, you know, that is not a gesture. It's a door unlocking from the inside. Progress came like spring ice cracking, not dramatic but relentless. He started naming colors, asking softly for more, stringing simple sentences together, laughter warming rooms that had gone cold. In the evenings, Preston would find Maya in a chair beside Eli's bed, his small hand resting over hers, the lamplight turning that quiet into something holy. One night, rain tracing the tall windows, Preston poured 2 cups of tea in a study that used to be a war room, and said the words he'd been afraid of. When my wife died, I thought family was finished for me. Numbers don't bleed when you touch them, but you reminded me what showing up looks like. Maya didn't take the compliment like a trophy, she held it with care. Eli doesn't need perfection, he needs to know he's seen. And then pajamas, bare feet on hardwood, a toy train in one hand. Eli climbed into her lap, nestled under her chin, and whispered a single word that knocked the house into a new orbit. Safe. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, that. The board tried one last time. Of course they did, late meeting skyline blazing, like proof of something. Speeches about fiduciary duty, optics. How love is a liability when markets are nervous. Preston listened, then told them the sentence that redefined his leadership. You brought me here because I refuse to ignore details that matter. And right now what matters is the compass that got clearer when I put my son before your comfort. They didn't clap. They didn't need to. Power knows when it's been told where to stand. Inside the estate, the smaller battles kept testing the edges. Grace, a maid who'd let envy ferment into something mean, cornered Maya in the pantry, voice like a blade wrapped in silk. Don't think one child's smile makes you queen of this house. Maya didn't raise her voice, I'm not here for crowns. I'm here for Eli, and nothing you say can move me from that. The words hit the tile and didn't bounce back. A week later, under a sky so clear, the stars looked like they were listening. Preston gathered staff in the conservatory. No boss tone, no window dressing, just a man whose chest had been cracked open and set better. This house was built on wealth, but it will be remembered for love, and for that we owe Maya. It didn't land like a speech, it landed like a truth. Eli tugged at Maya's sleeve, looked from her to his father, and said the one word that tied the room together without ribbon. Family. We could end right there, let the credits roll while the piano swells, but life doesn't love a perfect bow, and you didn't come here for a greeting card. So let me ask you the thing that keeps me up. Should it take a maid to remind a hospital that a child is not a problem to be managed? Should it take a billionaire's last nerve to make a board rethink what leadership looks like? Should it take grief to make us kinder? Or could we just choose it before the storm? Do you think that's fair, that the people closest to the pain do the heaviest lifting, that convenience hides inside systems and calls itself policy, that we measure what looks neat on a chart and forget what looks messy in a heart? Here's what I learned watching this unfold, and you can argue with me in the comments. I'll read every word. The best medicine in that house wasn't in a vial. It was in the way Maya waited, without trying to win, mirrored, without mocking, named the world. so Eli could walk back into it one syllable at a time. The bravest thing Preston did wasn't firing a nurse or facing a board. It was looking at his son and saying, "I'm here then, doing the boring, heroic thing, proving it in the dark when nobody was clapping." And the bravest thing Eli did, harder than any of it, was trust. After fear has lived in your chest for years, trust is not small. It's a mountain with no handrails. So if it were you, if the experts told you to make memories, would you set your watch to their schedule? Or would you listen for the whisper that says, "Try again"? Wait longer, look closer. Would you have hired the person with soft shoes and steady eyes, even if their resume made other people scoff? And if you work inside a system that keeps things tidy by keeping people quiet, what's your responsibility to crack a window and let the air move? That's the story I promised you, not because doctors are villains or institutions are evil, but because people forget, they forget that healing is relational, that credentials are powerful but not omniscient, that sometimes the smallest presence turns a house back into a home. Eli didn't beat a clock, he reset it. He made time take a breath and start over. And yes, there were scans and specialists and follow-ups because we honor medicine around here, but what I witnessed, the turning point wore a name tag that read Maya and a job title nobody thought mattered. Now it's your turn. Don't scroll past this. Tell me in the comments what family means to you when the house goes too quiet. Tell me if you've ever chosen presence over pride and paid a price for it. Tell me whether you think we reward the right things in our hospitals and boardrooms and homes, or if we've just gotten good at counting what's easy to count. If this story lit even a small light where you're standing, hit like so it can find someone who's sitting with pamphlets and a hollow stomach. Subscribe. If you want more stories told the way life actually feels, messy and stubborn and tender, and share your moment below the one where you decided to see someone and everything changed. I'll be in the comments with you, reading, learning, arguing in good faith, because that's how this gets better. One voice at a time, one steady hand, one act of love that refuses to be quiet.